everyone. I'd like to call to order the Tennessee Fish and Wildlife Commission meeting here at Lone Oaks Farm. We are absolutely thrilled to be in this location. And if we could, let's go ahead and I would like to ask Commissioner Stroud to give the invocation, and if we could stand following the Pledge of Allegiance. Yes.
Father, we love you. We just thank you so much for this beautiful place. And we ask that you bless this place and be successful, and that you bring a lot of kids in here and you impress them and you inspire them. Father, I thank you right now for this group of people that are here to do your work. So put your hand on us. Give us that inspiration and knowledge. Let us do the right things, and let us do whatever we do in your name. Father, we also want to just sort of back up a day. Yesterday was December the 7th, and we know that it was Pearl Harbor Day. And we want to, as a group, acknowledge our service people and ask that you bless them. And Father, thank you for giving them the courage to give us the freedom. Let us have a great meeting today. Let us get back to our houses, bless our families. Thank you for your child and a Christmas that we will all be happy and really excited to share. Father, thank you for this day. Let us have a good day, and it is in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Stroud, very much. Definitely want to welcome everyone here. Yesterday was just such a gift to have the opportunity to begin in fellowship, to go and experience such hospitality from Dr. Carlisle and the folks at the Ames Plantation, to then go to the Bird Dog Hall of Fame and learn about all of what the AKC is located in New York City on Fifth Avenue, I think, and to have the field trial and Bird Dog Hall of Fame right here in Grand Junction, Tennessee is a real treat. But then to really spend some quality time here at Lone Oaks with Dr. West and his team, I think the key to a strong vision is when you can really see the future and the thousands of children who are going to have the opportunity to learn about the outdoors here, the thoughtfulness that they've taken to align the STEM education work with what's happening in Tennessee public schools is just remarkable. But this is just such a place of hospitality, and there's something really special here, and I know that this commission is very proud of the investments that the agency and we have made here. My alma mater, the University of Tennessee, it's just a really special place, and everyone has been so kind. So to the agency team, the Lone Oaks team, everybody who has done so much work to welcome us here and to make us feel at home. It's been a great endeavor for you all to do that, and we greatly, greatly appreciate it. I do want to make sure that we've got a very special guest who's not a guest. He's a member of this commission, Commissioner Jay Templeton, the Commissioner of Agriculture. We are tickled that you are with us today. So welcome, and thank you so much for joining us. I know we're in your backyard, and so would you like to make any comments, Commissioner? I want to make sure that you get that opportunity.
Well, welcome all the members of the commission to Southwest Tennessee. We're pretty proud of this little gym we have here at Lone Oak.
You should be.
Glad to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We also have Mike Butler with Tennessee Wildlife Federation who's joined us, and other guests. We really appreciate your time and energy here. With that, I'll go ahead and ask for the roll call.
Dennis Gardner. Here. Angie Box. Here. Bill Cox. Here. Connie King. Here. Chad Baker. Here. James Stroud. Here. Bill Swan. Here. Kent Woods. Here. Brian McLaren. Here. Tony Sanders. Here. Kurt Holbert. Here. Jeff Cook. Here. Jamie Woodson.
Here.
Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Danette. Excellent. So we'll move to the approval of the minutes. In your packets, you should have your minutes, and feel free to take a moment to review those now, and I would certainly entertain a motion to approve. Motion by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Holbert and Baker. Any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. You adopt. Excellent. With that, we'll go. Does anybody have any announcements to make or thoughts to share before we get started with the business of the day? Commissioner.
I'd like for James Stroud to be our chaplain after that prayer. I think James, so thank you.
Could not agree more. Thank you very much, Commissioner Stroud. Excellent. Commissioner Swan.
I know that we passed the hat earlier, but I think we all ought to give the staff here at this facility a big round of applause. You guys have been wonderful.
Absolutely. Please.
I would like to thank our staff, whoever put all these books together for us. Very helpful. I can see now. And battery's dead on my iPad. I know what's going on.
So, Ms. Dannette, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you all.
We're crawling into the new millennium. I thank you for giving us options between the iPads and the paper. We really appreciate it. Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Books.
Hey, and Jennifer, do we leave these books here for you all to reload for next time? Okay. Now I know.
But if there's any paperwork that you'd like to take with you, Commissioner, you can feel free to do that.
Take it with me?
If you would like to take any of the information with you.
Oh,
you
okay.
certainly can.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner?
I was just gonna say, they're also really good at keeping our name tags when we leave them. How many times in that? Sorry, a million. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, well, we'll get moving. I'd like to call on Chairman King with the Fisheries Management Committee.
Yes. I'd like to recognize Chief Frank Fiss, please.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Get started up here. Okay, can you really see? Okay. So I believe it was a couple months ago now, we did a budget expansion to take some federal Asian carp money, and I said it would be a really great idea to, there's a lot been going on, I'd like to update you on what's been happening with Asian carp, so that I got that opportunity with this schedule. The species haven't changed, and I know we've talked about this a lot, but I'll just run through them again just to refresh your memory. We have the silver carp, they're the ones that jump, you see a lot of. Big head carp are in our system. You don't see them jump, and they get a lot bigger. They're not as prolific either. We don't know that they're reproducing a lot in our Tennessee Cumberland rivers. Then we have the black carp, which is a typically only in the until this month only in the Mississippi-Ohio system, and it's interesting in that. Now, all these fish were brought in for aquaculture purposes and got released in the Mississippi River. This fish is known for eating mussels and snails. So, when this fish comes into particularly the Tennessee system where we have all that mussel fauna in the Duck River, that's something that we're really concerned about. The grass carp is getting more attention, even though these fish have been released in farm ponds across the South for decades, and we see them everywhere we work. But in recent years, the nation, all the people that are working in the Mississippi Basin have been very concerned about them suddenly, because as we're looking for these other carp, we're starting to detect greater numbers of these grass carp, and they're diploid, they're fertile fish that will spawn and have been spawning. So this is a map that you've seen before. That dark river on the left side here is obviously the Mississippi River, goes up in the Ohio. That is shaded in because we have reproducing populations of silver, bighead, probably black carp, and certainly grass carp. And that's kind of the well where all the carp are coming from as they come up the Tennessee and Cumberland systems. And this area in pink, and then I've got Pickwick shown there, those are rivers that have been infiltrated by silver carp and bighead carp. We had an occurrence of silver carp this year, just one fish that we know of in Wheeler Reservoir. So that's further up the river than previous times I've spoken to you about silver carp. Now, I don't know that I wouldn't call that a reproducing population. There's just one fish so far, but it's still a great cause for concern. Bighead carp, for a few years now, we've had one or two sighted in Nickajack Reservoir. So the bighead carp have a tendency to move in small groups and travel the furthest, whereas the silver carp tend to populate a reservoir and then maybe spill over into the next upstream reservoir. So it's kind of different movement strategies of these species. And the black carp, as I said, was for years really not off our radar, but we weren't really focusing on black carp because they were in the Mississippi River. There wasn't a whole lot of options for control anyway. Well, now black carp have come up into Barkley Reservoir. This fish was caught this month by a commercial fisherman that was out with Kentucky biologists. So that's big news. That news has gone national. We're now black carp are clearly on our radar. So what are we doing? And it's believe me, as Chief of Fisheries, it's very frustrating to have Asian carp throughout our systems, and there's a lot of things we can be doing. The challenge is really making it doing the right things at the right time. And right now, the things we're working on are containment, reduction, and monitoring. We still have time to contain these populations. They've not gone up the next 4 dams all the way to Loudon. We can still protect East Tennessee. There are still tributary impoundments that should never get carp through their own movement. We need to contain them where they are. And now's the time to do that. We won't have that opportunity decades from now. Reduction is still an important part of this, though, because as I said, some of these species tend to move after they kind of fill up a reservoir theoretically, and then tend to move upstream is the thinking. So that there is still a need to put pressure on these populations where they are. And then monitoring is important so that we know what we're accomplishing in any of our activities, and we can tell people what's going on. But most importantly, to evaluate stuff. So let's talk about containment first. We're still getting that message out to the public that it would be a terrible thing to move Asian carp accidentally as bait to a system that doesn't have them already. We haven't really had a big concern that this would happen in the last 2 years because we haven't had significant reproduction of any of these carp species where you would accidentally catch 100 of them. We're not even sure they've spawned in Kentucky Lake or any of the other Tennessee River reservoirs. Another part of the containment effort has been lobbying for federal funds. We've been able to get money for monitoring and research, but the dollars that we need to install deterrents at locks is big money to us. It's $500,000 to get started, millions to keep going. So I've joined others in the Mississippi Basin to go to D.C. to ask for funding. I also consider lobbying, like when I go to these workshops and conference calls, just participating in the process, letting them know that we need help. That's what I do a lot. And that's a lot of this work the public never sees, but it's the only time we can do this containment work. So like I said, we're working on basin-wide planning efforts. The decisions we make are in concert with what's going on in other states and other federal agencies. And I've personally invited USGS and Fish and Wildlife Service to come to Tennessee, bring your barrier gear. We'll support you while you're doing that. You're welcome to come here. I was hoping we could lure them with warmer temperatures. A lot of the people that are working in this line of work are up in upper Mississippi area, Mississippi River, where it's cooler. The other work that we're doing is funding research at Tennessee Tech to support deterrent systems. The service, the government agencies that have the technology to install deterrents will not come to Tennessee unless we have a framework on the ground that will measure the success of this. That's why we're tagging with sonic tags Asian carp in the system so that we can test whatever they put on the ground when they get here. But they won't come until we put that work in, and luckily we've made progress on that. So let's talk about containment for a minute. This is Cordell Hole Dam. On the left side is the powerhouse. I don't know if I can, no, I don't have a pointer, but the left side is the powerhouse. The middle set of structure there are the gates, and on the far right side is the lock channel. And this is pretty much all the main river dams have these structures in some array. And keep in mind that fish can always come through this dam, through any one of those areas. They can lock through downstream, they can go through the gates when the gates are open, and fish do go through the turbines and live. They don't all live, but a lot of them do, especially if you've got small fish going through, they can go through relatively unharmed. So at this point, we're most concerned with blocking fish from going upstream, and our opportunity to do that is thought to be with sound deterrence at locks. There's a unique feature of these Asian carp is that they're highly attuned to sound, and they're built differently from a lot of our native species. So they don't like certain sounds. I guess it would be similar to blowing a dog whistle. You don't hear it, your dog does. They've got this tested in pond situations where they can make these fish avoid certain areas. So the thinking is if we could make the fish avoid a lock whenever the lock's about to be used, then we'd have that many fewer fish migrating up through. So it may look like this. They may have to put a barrier on the lock walls and then have something on the bottom of the water or on the bottom to send sound out as well. It wouldn't impede navigation, and it shouldn't affect other species either, but all that needs to be tested as we go forward. But at least it's not a lethal method that would take out non-target species at this time. So here's an image of just kind of how small these structures are. There, if you can see on the bottom part of this lock, you can see transducers. I guess they're basically speakers underwater that they're cranking out whatever tunes the carp don't like. But I was surprised at how much research there really is going on in what fish hear or sense and don't sense, because it's actually a concern that if you turn them up too high, you could deafen fish, and then you couldn't control them. But I just never thought of that. But that's what the people that are working at the service and USGS level are working on. So like I said, we're doing carp movement work right now, and that has really kicked off this month. We've had 2 efforts out tagging fish where we were able to get fish tagged. This picture here shows the tagging team inserting a transmitter in a silver carp. That's probably, well, it is one of those 2015 fish. That fish is laying on a bed of mesh that has 12-volt electricity going through it to anesthetize the fish. And then they have water pumped over the gills to keep the fish alive. And they put that enclosed capsule in the fish in under 2 minutes, stitch them up, or put the antibacterial stuff on them and get them out of the boat. Pretty neat. So far, Kentucky's been doing this a few more years than us, testing how fish are moving around Kentucky and Barkley dams. They've got about 90 fish at large. These tags will last for 4 to 5 years, the way they operate. Tennessee, we just got our tags out. We've got almost 50 out now in the vicinity of the Pickwick Dam. So and then Mississippi is equally concerned. We sent. Well, it wasn't our crew, but our research team out of Tennessee Tech went and helped the state of Mississippi get fish tagged. So they got 12 fish tagged in Pickwick Lake. So we're setting the stage here to have fish tagged throughout the whole Tennessee River. And then we have arrays of passive receivers which track whether or not fish went through the dam or not. They got a receiver above them, below the dam, and then we can put them at different river mouths and know if they're using the Duck River to spawn or not. Those are the kinds of questions that we have to answer. So like I said, we're just trying to confirm their use of locks some early data that's come back from Kentucky showed that they had some fish that went up through the lock and then came back through again, came downstream again. That, you know, if we see a lot of that movement, it may suggest that these fish have more of a home range than a really urgent need to keep going upstream, which would be promising. Like I said, we want to identify spawning areas. If we could identify like the only spot on, say, the Tennessee River where they're successful, that would give us an opportunity to disrupt that in some way, either by attacking fish or larval fish. The other work that we can do with these tagged fish that are sending out sonic sound or acoustic sounds all day long is we can go out and track where these fish are over a period of time, a few days. Like, are they using the channel by day and the coves or the side channels by night? And any of that kind of information could help us get more efficient at harvesting, or the industry get more efficient at harvesting these fish. So here's that same fish, I think, has been tagged. You'll see that there's a kind of a big loop on the back of that fish. That's an external tag, so that if a commercial fisher catches this fish, he or she'll know that they got one of our tagged fish. And I'm not sure what they're supposed to do yet. I got to check on that. Either you're supposed to turn that tag in or let the fish go. I can't remember. There'd be reasons to do it either way, actually. And then this image on the left here is that, like I said, on top there, that's about like a 3-inch tag. That's what's going in the fish. It's got mostly battery just to send that sound out. And then that bigger item there, it's about this big, that's what's being stationed out in the reservoir. And every time a fish goes past that thing, of course they have certain range they can read or hear, but it'll hit a ping, and that is recording all the pings. And so they'll go, the team will go out and retrieve these things on a month or bi-monthly basis and collect all that data. And they get millions of data points of things pinging, noises and sounds and things that the computer finds your fish in it. And the other neat thing is that the data, you know, it's always, these things are always working. So you get a lot of data. We don't have to send a crew out except to download the data. But we also share the data among states. If a fish that was tagged by someone on the Mississippi River up in Ohio, or Iowa rather, comes downstream and goes past one of our receivers, we'll know that fish was there. And it could be a catfish, it could be a sturgeon from any other project. So we have this large network now of receivers that can support other fisheries projects. But most importantly, if one of our fish that we tagged goes somewhere else, they'll know that it went there as well. So we're all working together on this. And when I say we, it's the state agencies, it's federal agencies, and it's the universities that we've contracted with to do the work for a lot of this tracking work. So let's shift gears now to reduction away from containment. Commercial harvest is still the best game in town for removing fish. They're probably going to hit 2 million pounds this year on Kentucky Barkley lakes. And that's been creeping up over time. Anything we can do to support that, we're interested in. We this past year did issue a grant to the Paris-Henry County Industrial Committee, and they worked with local carp buyers, kind of middlemen dealers that will hopefully give them a chance to establish their business in Tennessee, which we haven't had over the years. All of the real buying that was going on was happening in Kentucky. So we're excited that they got all that. They got $75,000 that they put on the ground, and they ended up buying ice machines and big totes and jacklifts and things so that they can store a lot of fish and get that to market to make it where it's worthwhile for the fishermen to buy these, to harvest fish and bring them for sale. Another thing that we're working on out of our office is a pilot cost share project where we ended up with a really good deal through a netting company on the West Coast, and where they make the nets that are used for salmon fishing that are also very good for carp. We've learned the carp rip through the typical tackle that we use in Tennessee, so we're trying different things. Well, the commercial fishermen have landed on something they like and they think they know works, and they say it's expensive. So we are cost sharing with them, where they pay 25% of the cost, we pay 75% of the cost for a limited amount of product, just as a first pilot to see if that gets more time on the water, more carp coming out. And this first order is going to create a little over 5 miles of netting purchase to get in the water. So we're not sure how well we can expand this project, but we're interested in it. We want to see how it goes month to month. And again, we're still lobbying as a group for more federal funds. We get the money for research not easily, but we've been successful in getting that money, about $200,000 a year to Tennessee, and other states are getting similar amounts. And last year we got a bonus amount of money to share among the states to do deterrent work, but we've not gotten money to dedicate towards harvesting carp yet. But there is interest in that in Congress. They like those kinds of projects as well, we're told. So we're going to keep on that. Another thing that's happening is label certification. There's a perception that carp, people won't pay a lot of money for carp. Come right down to it. We'd like people to pay more for it, and that would help the industry get going. There's a small, there are businesses that work in the realm of label certification. So if you buy your pet food or your human food and you want to know that it was dolphin safe or free trade practices were used in the production of that food, it would be on the label. Well, there are people working on labels to make it known that this is a good product to buy to support the environment, and it was safely caught and all that kind of thing. So anything anyone can do to add value to this at the retail end is going to give us more incentive to have people harvesting carp as commercial fishers. So then we get on to monitoring. Like I said, we still have the Tennessee Tech crew, and we have our own people working on Kentucky, Barkley Lakes, and they're using multiple gears to see how we can quantify, to know if we have more carp or less carp from one year to another. We also want to know everything we can about carp, their population dynamics, so that we can manage them. We try to manage other fisheries like paddlefish fisheries or catfish fisheries for some optimum level. Well, we can, if we figure these fish out well enough, we could manage them to be kind of poorly managed, where they're just really low abundance instead of a higher abundance. So that would be a goal. And another thing that's happening is this eDNA. The Fish and Wildlife Service comes down and looks for environmental traces of DNA of carp in our most upstream areas, where if there were a few carp there, we'd probably never be able to go up and catch them with a shocking boat because our numbers are so few. But they can detect those fish in the water by taking water samples. And so we welcome them to come every year, and they do, and they check for us. And that's how we kind of know the distribution that we have. Lastly, we are also doing larval sampling on Kentucky and Barkley Lakes. You know, we've only had that 1 year class that's abundant, and there's still some speculation as to whether or not those fish, a lot of those fish could have migrated in through the locks that year. Maybe it was just a high migration year, not necessarily a high reproductive success year. It's kind of wishful thinking, but we do need to know what the reproductive capacity of these species are in these reservoirs, and that this sampling goes towards that. So there's a lot of things that we're measuring and trying to keep up with. I want to try to explain what we're thinking of on a national scale about carp control, how to use the resources we have. This is not the white-tailed deer management plan timeline. It won't be. It won't get to that point. But it raises the question. So on the left side here, we have the Ohio River, which is full of fish. We're worried about fish coming up the Ohio River all the time. And we've got a series of dams. So as you go upstream, that's going to the left side of the page. So where's the most important place to put heavy commercial harvest, or to direct it with money somehow or incentives? Or where should we put deterrence? These are the questions that we ask, and we have to, we have to fight for the money, so we have to have really good plans when we ask for it. So To do that, we need to know as much as we can about carp abundance, reproduction, and migration rates upstream and downstream through all the dams. And that's what the work that we're doing is leading us to. We're going to have answers to these things over time and better answers over time. But let's just theoretically look at where we might be right now. We've got in Kentucky Lake, which is this abundant population on the left here, we've got some juvenile fish suggesting maybe there's reproduction, and we don't really have records of reproduction and even fewer fish as you go upstream. So what would we do if we had all the money that we need? Well, I would start with deterrence on the upstream end of this population, and maybe some redundancy to bring it back to where we think the fish are reproducing. And in concert with that, we would want heavy commercial harvest on that Tennessee population to make sure those numbers stay down so there's less likelihood of them going upstream. That's just one concept. That's kind of what we're asking for now when we go. But anytime we get new information, it can all change. Let's look at this example. What if all of a sudden fish are reproducing in Wilson Reservoir? Well, those fish that are reproducing are going to go downstream, and there's nothing we can do about that. So at that point, there's really no point in putting deterrence downstream of Wilson. They all need to be focused upstream. And then at that point, we might focus our commercial harvest on our, the front line of the battle, so to speak, where we have reproducing fish. That's just a concept, of course, all along there'd be commercial harvest behind it. And when we talk about limited control options and limited resources, you can't have it all everywhere. That's why we need the data we have to inform our decisions. And this is just really, in a really crude way, just trying to describe what we're thinking about. And there's actually people in the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service they're modeling. They're trying to put all the probabilities and put all the data in it to predict with some accuracy, with some precision, where we should do what. But in the meantime, I'm just thinking about it in cartoon figures. So